Greetings from Universidad Nacional de Educación. My name is Marisela Cajamarca.
And I am Verónica Herrera.
Today, we are going to describe the project we conducted with the name English Language Learning from a Model of Creativity for Environmental Sustainability, an Ecuadorian Action Research Study.
Our project had two main purposes. Since we're English teachers and we teach English proficiency, the first purpose was to develop students' English linguistic skills through reflective processes that have an impact on environmental sustainability. And also, since we teach future teachers, we wanted to develop their professional competencies, which will help them in their future practice.
So, in order to integrate these purposes, we selected project-based learning as the method of instruction in this case. Project-based learning falls into the communicative language teaching approach proposed by Wilkins in the earlier 1970s. It is a variation of task-based language teaching, or TBLT, proposed by Willis in 1996. Because it has a focus on process rather than on product, it provides an invitation to participate on functional tasks. It focuses on meaning exchange and language for the real world. Students will be exposed to a much more varied range of lexical phrases, collocations, and patterns, as well as language forms. And it differs from TBLT because in this case, students are the ones who select the focus of the study they want to conduct. So we followed a methodology with a qualitative nature, with the collection and analysis of students' perceptions and of their learning experiences. We selected to conduct action research design because as teachers, we think that it is very important to reflect on the teaching practices that we conduct in order to improve the students' learning. So we followed the Mills and Joffrey dialectic action research spiral, which consists on 4 stages or phases. So first, the identification of the focus of the study. Then with this, we collected data that helped us inform the focus of the study. With this data collection, we conducted analysis and interpretation in order to plan and to design an action plan and implement it. Then again, we reflected continuously using the data collection that we had, the data that we had to plan another action. So we did this using this teacher observation guide that you can see here. So Vero and I were the teachers conducting this action research. So we kept a record of our reflections, which were registered on a weekly, on these weekly journals. The analysis of the data focused on the students' perceptions in 3 aspects: the environmental impact, the language learning and skills development, and the teaching professional skills development. So every time we join together with this teacher observation guide in order to take further actions.
For our study, we had 80 students who had an A1.1 proficiency level according to the Common European Framework. They belonged to 2 majors, which was elementary education and experimental sciences. From the 80 students, 51 students were male and 21 were female. They were around 18 to 20-year-olds, and they came from Cuenca and the Azogues. For our project, all our students formed small groups, and they went through 5 phases. The first phase was raising awareness. In this phase, what they did is go to their favorite place on campus and write down what everybody did in that spot. So for example, some students went to the cafeteria and they wrote down that people eat, or they take food to other places of the university, and they use single plastic, single-use plastics. After they did this, they came back to the classroom and they shared their observations. The intention of this stage was for them to realize that their favorite place in the university was being destroyed, or was destroying the environment by what people were doing. So the second phase was to exactly identify what was harming the environment. And in the case of the cafeteria was the single-use plastic. After that, they had to do research, which was the third phase, about how to solve this problem. They came up with many solutions. So they went to the fourth phase, which was brainstorming. They had to come up with solutions and the steps they had to take to implement the solution, to see if it was viable in the university, if they could actually carry out the solution. And then they went to the final phase, which was implementation, where they carried out the solution they selected.
As they were doing, they also collected information about their experiences. Their perceptions were registered on bi-weekly written logs that included 3 sections: the heads-on, hands-on, and hearts-on. So every 2 weeks, they had to write exactly what happened during this phase. And we wanted to know what they were thinking as they were living this experience, what actions they were taking, and also how they were feeling about this.
After the students carried out the project, we performed a survey. The first question was to find out if their environmental awareness had an impact. The majority of the students said yes.
Mm-hmm. Also, we asked them about their perception on the changes in the context, and they were able to see that by conducting the projects that they designed, 60% of the cases had a change in the context.
Okay. After that, we wanted to know if the project that they implemented was sustainable in time, and in economic resources, and in human resources. So we wanted to know if the project that they implemented could be carried on without them being present. And 70% of the projects could.
Mm-hmm. And almost all the students recognized that their English level improved by conducting the project-based learning.
Finally, we wanted to know if their creativity, in what phase did they feel that they used it the most. According to the survey, during the awareness phase, and also while they implemented their solution, were the phases where they most used their creativity.
Mm-hmm. Some of the problems or issues that our students identified while implementing the projects were the time that they had to spend. Most of them also identified the problem of the transportation. A lot of students also mentioned that they didn't think that the issues that they found or the issues that they had to face affected the project-based learning that they were doing, because it was the things were not crucial for the study.
So after that, we wanted to ask about the development of language skills. So mostly students felt that they developed vocabulary, pronunciation, fluency, because in each stage that they were developing the project, we asked them for oral presentations about the progress and what their next steps were.
So we went back to theory, to what we already found, and we learned that Lieber and Kaplan conducted a similar study in 2004, and they identified some findings. For example, they mentioned that project-based learning increased the motivation of students for learning. In our case, it happened. We were able to see that students were eager to find solutions to what they were doing, and because they had to use English, they were using English by their own means. So they also mentioned that it is this methodology provides a greater curricular flexibility, which we think that it happened also with us because since the students had to focus on a specific issue to solve, we had a variety of scenarios, and then we had different vocabulary that the students brought to the table because they were trying to solve different problems. They also used different verb tenses to express their ideas because they used about probabilities. They used the tenses for if, the if clauses that usually in the English lessons we study in further levels, but they were using it in the first level in A1.1 according to the Common European Framework. So it was not like a linear curriculum design. It actually happened to be a more complex curriculum design. It was more flexible, but it was more dynamic, if I could say that. According to Lieber and Kaplan, they say that it allows students to think about how they are learning. And we think that the tools that we used, the hands-on, hands-on and hearts-on, allow them to not only see the process, but also think, feel, and do things about the project. So that was really important for us. An opportunity for natural error correction. In the case of our study, as I mentioned before, we as teachers had to be prepared for answering questions that raised on the moment. And so we were able to actually help the students, and students had to self-regulate themselves. And it was a different experience, which actually is part of this discussion, because at the beginning of the process, students identified some difficulties in terms of the methodology, because obviously they were not used to learning the language from a communicative approach. They usually came from the high schools in Ecuador, where there are more traditional methodologies to teach the language. So in this case, since they first started the language program in the university, facing a communicative teaching and a communicative learning approach, it was a bit difficult for them at the beginning. But with the time, they recognized, and they mentioned this in the weekly logs that they had to write, that they became more independent in terms of learning. And Lieber and Kaplan also mentioned about the promotion of risk-taking. And we found this reality both for students and also for teachers, because we were implementing this project-based learning for the first time, and actually thinking, reflecting, and applying the processes and the phases of this methodology. It was completely new for us, and we had to adapt, to be flexible, to be ready for changes, and to be ready to take actions on what in all the situations that emerged from the reality. And it says increased student satisfaction, but I think that it not only increased student satisfaction, but also teachers' satisfaction, because the environment certainly had an impact and what we did.
So pedagogical implications of our study was using a communicative approach like project-based learning is beneficial to develop students' oral skills. Also, learning a language through project-based learning promotes creativity through the process. And because of the nature of project-based learning, the teaching process is more flexible in terms of planning for lexical phrases, collocations, patterns. So teachers have to be always ready to support and provide error corrections on the spot.
So that's all for now, and we hope that our experience and all the things that we are sharing with you can help you plan and take risks in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye.